the best commentaries from the last video. Subscribe to see more stories.
I never imagined that my world could quietly shatter, like a vase sliding off a shelf and breaking in slow motion. My name is Mitchell, and until very recently, I thought I knew everything about my life with Isadora. We had built a life together that felt as sturdy as the old oak tree in our backyard, steady, lasting, and full of promises for the future. But small fractures had started to appear long before the day she called me over to discuss what she called a clean break. It started with little, unexplained moments. I noticed a tiny change in her behavior when she was on her phone or a slight twitch when we were alone. At first, I blamed it on work stress or maybe a secret worry about what lay ahead. Yet as weeks turned into months, these quiet hints began to form a story I wasn't ready to face. Isadora was not the person I believed her to be. One evening, after an especially long day at the office, I came home early, expecting nothing more than a quiet meal and a peaceful night. The house was strangely silent, and as I walked through the rooms, I found a series of texts and emails on her laptop that told a story of closeness and betrayal. I sat there, shocked, as the truth hit me like a cold winter sunrise. The woman I had shared my life with was caught up in a web of lies. And even more hurtful, it seemed this cheating had started long before she ever brought up divorce. Isadora had always been careful in every detail, her smile, the thoughtful words she chose in our talks, even the way she looked at me during our time together. Now I saw it all as an elaborate act, a part she played flawlessly. She had worn the mask of a hurt victim, an innocent wife wronged by fate, while secretly planning to walk away with everything, our shared home, our savings, and the moral high ground among our friends and family. As I struggled with the pain of being betrayed, a plan began to take shape in my mind. I realized that if I let her leave our marriage without a fight, she would not only break my trust but take everything that belonged to us. I couldn't, in good conscience, allow her to get away with what she had done. The truth needed to come out. I began to collect evidence, carefully and step by step, so that she wouldn't suspect a thing. Every text, every misplaced email, every digital clue was saved and noted. I turned into my own detective, retracing her actions and putting together the timeline of her deceit. It was a painful process, going over the happy memories we once had and realizing they were built on lies. But as I gathered more proof, my determination only grew stronger. The first person I trusted with my secret was my closest friend, Benjamin. He had always been the one to listen to me, able to see my blind spots and offer honest advice. Sitting quietly over a cup of coffee in our favorite little cafe, I shared all the evidence with him. I watched his face change from worry to a quiet anger, a shared understanding that this was more than just a mistake in our marriage, it was a deep betrayal of trust and a manipulation of our lives. Benjamin's steady support made me feel that I was not alone in this fight for what was right. The true turning point came when I decided to face the web of lies head-on. I reached out to several trusted family members and began to reveal the truth. It wasn't about shaming Isadora, even though the thought of exposing her publicly was there. It was about taking back control of my own story. I wanted our loved ones to see past the image of a hurt victim she had created. In one conversation after another, I explained how her actions were not just a one-time mistake but a planned betrayal that had been developing long before divorce was ever mentioned. Meanwhile, Isadora's perfect facade started to fall apart. I found out that her lover, Andreas, had lost interest as her lies unraveled. Andreas, who had once filled her life with promises and soft words, began to see the truth behind her clever manipulation. Without the thrill of deceit to keep him hooked, he pulled away, and her hold on the story began to weaken. Even though I was hurting inside, I knew I had to stick to a strict set of rules. I made sure that my actions did not cross any lines or create more scandal. I was determined to tell my story without using harmful or defamatory language. This wasn't about making a spectacle on social media or getting revenge, it was about fairness and accountability. In every conversation and every piece of evidence I shared, I kept my tone calm, stuck to the facts, and followed the guidelines for public discussion, including those set by platforms like YouTube. I planned my next moves with great care. First, I would secure every piece of evidence and keep it safe. Then, I intended to speak with our mutual friends and family, sharing the real story in a clear and straightforward way. My goal was not to stir up chaos, but to let the truth speak for itself, a truth that Isadora could no longer hide behind her lies. I knew that once the truth came out, the support I needed would follow, and Isadora's well-crafted image of innocence would crumble in front of everyone who once admired her. Now, as I sit here with the evidence spread out before me like broken pieces of a shattered mirror, I feel a grim determination. I am not driven by a desire for petty revenge, but by the need for justice, for myself and for the honor of the truth. I remember the day we met, the laughter we shared, and the dreams we built together, and these memories fuel my resolve. I refuse to let our years together be remembered as a lie. I will reclaim my dignity, restore my trust in what is right, and make sure that the deception Isadora created does not leave me stripped of my honor. The road ahead is full of challenges. I know that exposing the truth will bring consequences, and that the fallout may be painful and widespread. Yet, the alternative, letting her get away with leaving me with broken trust, was something I could never accept. As I get ready to enter the next phase of this hard but necessary fight, I hold on to one strong belief: the truth, no matter how harsh, will always set us free. So, with a heavy heart but a firm spirit, I begin this journey, a journey of discovery, confrontation, and eventually, redemption. The path ahead is unclear, and the wounds run deep, but I am ready to face whatever comes my way. Because in the end, the truth must win, and with it, my honor must remain intact. In the days after I first faced the truth, a quiet storm began to build. I understood that challenging Isadora's lies was only the start, and that revealing the full depth of her betrayal would need not only proof but also a careful plan to break down the mask she had so carefully built. Every move I made was cautious, and every word was chosen with the weight of the situation in mind. After that fateful night, I began a careful process of recording everything. I searched through emails, texts, and even social media posts, each item a piece of the puzzle that painted a damning picture of Isadora's actions. With Benjamin's help, I set up a secure backup of every file, keeping the evidence in a form that could not be changed. We both knew that if the truth were to come out, it needed to be beyond doubt. Our work became almost like a ritual, fueled by a growing determination that justice had to be done. For her part, Isadora seemed to be running out of time. I noticed her behavior growing more erratic, her calm mask began to crack under the weight of her deceit. At family gatherings and social events, she played the role of the wronged partner flawlessly. She laughed a bit too loudly at jokes, shed tears at just the right moments, and carefully steered conversations to win sympathy. It was all an act, one that was becoming harder to keep up as details of her affairs started to emerge. One particularly revealing moment happened at a mutual friend's birthday party. As conversation flowed and glasses clinked, I overheard bits of talk that hinted at a scandal much bigger than I had expected. A friend of Isadora's, speaking quietly, mentioned that she had been seen with several other men in the weeks before our discussion about divorce. The casual tone of the comment sent a chill down my spine. It confirmed that her betrayal was not a one-time thing, but a repeated pattern of behavior. I made a mental note to check this account, determined not to leave any detail unexplored. The next morning, while Isadora kept busy with her usual routine, applying makeup with careful precision and choosing outfits that radiated elegance, I began reaching out to others who might have seen her deception. I met privately with several acquaintances, explaining the situation in a calm yet firm way. Their shocked faces and hesitant nods confirmed what I had started to suspect: Isadora had expertly manipulated her surroundings to keep up an image of innocence. In quiet conversations and offhand remarks, I learned about secret meetings, extravagant dinners with strangers, and even mysterious messages hinting at more than one affair. Each new detail only strengthened my resolve to make sure her carefully built story would collapse under the truth. At work, the tension was clear as I kept up a normal appearance, even though I knew my personal life was falling apart. Colleagues who once greeted me warmly now gave me looks of sympathy, though few could fully understand the complexity of my situation. Even Benjamin, who had always been my rock, warned me not to let the emotional chaos take over. "Mitchell, be careful," he advised one afternoon as we went over the evidence together. "In exposing the truth, make sure you don't lose yourself." His words hit home. I had to tread this dangerous path with both my mind and heart, and not let bitterness take control. Meanwhile, Isadora's plan for a clean break started to take shape. She began divorce proceedings with an unsettling calm, hiring a lawyer known for aggressive tactics. In a short meeting, she laid out her demands: full custody of our shared assets, a generous alimony package, and, most disturbingly, the total removal of any mention of her past affairs. Her lawyer's cold, efficient manner left little room for discussion, as if every word was rehearsed and designed to leave me with no options. I realized then that she wasn't just fighting for a divorce, she was battling for control of the story, and I was left to pick up the pieces. Determined to counter her plan, I started contacting legal counsel of my own. In the sterile quiet of a law firm office, I explained everything in detail. My attorney listened carefully, nodding as I laid out all the compiled evidence. "We have a strong case," he assured me. "With the right presentation, we can show the court that this isn't just about infidelity, it's a systematic deception aimed at taking advantage of you." His confidence gave me a small ray of hope amid the darkness, though I knew that legal battles were rarely simple or clean. The courtroom, like life, was a place where perception often meant more than the facts. As the legal process began to take shape, I turned to social media to share my side of the story. I wrote a series of careful posts that told my journey, not as a tale of revenge, but as a search for truth and fairness. I made sure to stick only to proven facts and keep a tone that was both respectful and firm. The response was overwhelming. Friends and even strangers stood by me, sharing their own stories of betrayal and urging me to remain strong. The support felt like a counterweight to the isolation I had been feeling. It also made it clear that Isadora's manipulation had not gone unnoticed. Yet, with each post, I became more aware of the delicate line I was walking. Public opinion could be unpredictable, easily swayed by emotional stories. I had to be sure that every claim was backed by proof, every allegation supported by context. After all, the truth was my only tool against the flood of lies that had defined my marriage. In quiet moments, sitting alone at night, I struggled with mixed feelings. Part of me grieved the loss of the life we had built together, a life now permanently stained by deceit. But alongside that sorrow was a strong resolve to regain my dignity and secure a future based on honesty. I began to see that this fight was not just about splitting assets or winning a legal case, it was about proving my own worth and standing up to a betrayal that had tried to define me. By the end of this turbulent period, the cracks in Isadora's well-built web of lies were no longer hidden. Her network of deceit was unraveling, thread by thread, and I was at the heart of its collapse. The more she tried to control the story, the more evidence emerged, painting a clear picture of manipulation and planned betrayal. In this struggle, it wasn't just about exposing her to everyone, it was about taking back the control that had been stolen by her unfaithfulness. As I got ready to move forward, I clung to one undeniable truth: while the road ahead would be full of challenges and pain, fighting for justice was a battle worth taking. My journey was far from over, and with every step, I grew stronger and more determined. I was committed to making sure that Isadora's attempts to rewrite our shared past would be met with the full force of the truth, a truth that would not only clear my name but also warn others about the dangers of deceit. The moment when the truth could no longer be ignored arrived quietly, much like an unexpected storm ending a long, dry spell. In the weeks that followed my social media updates and discreet discussions with family and friends, doubts about Isadora's honesty had taken root and spread. Still, nothing could have prepared me for the instant when every piece of evidence, months of careful gathering, was revealed for all to see. It happened at a long-awaited family dinner. Our relatives had assembled at a family member's house, a place normally filled with cheerful conversation and laughter. But this time, under the heavy weight of unspoken tension, the atmosphere buzzed with expectation. I decided it was time to tell the full story, not out of a need for revenge, but to reclaim the truth. I started by recounting the early signs, the late-night phone calls, the unexplained absences, and the small changes in her behavior. I showed screenshots of texts, carefully chosen emails, and even bits of social media chats, all documented meticulously over the past months. As I spoke, I could feel the mood shift in the room. Faces that once displayed polite concern now showed shock, disbelief, and a growing realization that the Isadora they once knew was just a facade. The evidence was undeniable. Conversations among family members grew louder, as murmurs of shock turned into clear condemnations of her deceit. Even the quietest relatives struggled to reconcile the woman they thought they knew with the one emerging from my digital records. In that instant, the power balance shifted. Isadora's well-rehearsed image of innocence, a pitiful portrayal of a heartbroken victim, was stripped away to reveal an elaborate lie. The revelation was painful for everyone, yet it felt like a cleansing, a necessary clearing of falsehoods that had poisoned our family for too long. After that dinner, the fallout quickly spread beyond our immediate circle. What had once been whispered behind closed doors burst into the open across our local community and social media. Friends who had admired her poise now began to question every part of her past actions. Even those who had remained neutral found themselves forced to choose a side. The public had unwittingly become a part of this drama, and with every retelling, the truth rang out more clearly. In the midst of the chaos, Isadora tried to regain control. She set up a meeting with some of our closest mutual friends, hoping to rebuild her image and divert the rising tide of accusations. Yet when faced with the evidence, her rehearsed apologies and weak denials fell flat. I listened from afar as she pleaded, her voice shaking with an emotion that felt more like performance than genuine regret. I only wanted a clean break, she insisted, as if the promise of a spotless departure could erase months of deception. But the more she spoke, the more she revealed the truth. It wasn't just a case of mixed signals or a one-off mistake, it was a clear act of calculated betrayal. At work, the effects were just as apparent. Colleagues who once greeted me with warmth now approached with cautious admiration. Some even complimented my courage in bringing the truth forward, though I made it clear I wasn't trying to cast Isadora as the villain, I just wanted honesty to prevail. My attorney also noted the strength of our case. This evidence isn't just solid, it calls for a complete re-examination of everything that's happened, he told me during our latest meeting. The legal process, once shrouded in uncertainty, now had the strong backing of both our family and the public. In the midst of all this turmoil, I found unexpected comfort in new connections. People I had once seen as distant reached out, sharing their own stories of betrayal or warning me about similar traps. Their accounts, though different, echoed the same pain and eventual triumph that comes with facing harsh truths. It reminded me that in our shared human experience, vulnerability often drives a deep need for justice and realness. Still, even as the flood of truth surged, I couldn't ignore the inner conflict that tormented me. Part of me grieved the future I had once imagined with Isadora, the quiet evenings, the shared dreams, the life we had built together, now forever stained by deceit. That loss was personal and left a hollow space that no vindication could fill. But within that sorrow, I also learned a crucial lesson: sometimes tearing down a false reality is the only way to make room for true healing. Isadora's reaction to the scandal grew increasingly desperate. In one final bid to salvage what little credibility she had left, she arranged a private meeting with our closest family members. With tears streaming down her face and her voice thick with regret, she begged for forgiveness, claiming her actions were born from loneliness and vulnerability. Yet, her tone felt as shallow as her apologies. The evidence I presented and the collective murmurs of betrayal left her pleas powerless. It became clear that her downfall wasn't a sudden twist of fate, it was the natural result of months of intentional deceit. In the days that followed, as the scandal echoed through our community and the legal process moved forward, I wrestled with the mix of justice and mercy. Part of me longed for a quick, decisive end to our painful past. But another part understood that true justice needed time and an unyielding commitment to the truth, no matter how difficult the journey. I decided I wouldn't let her rewrite our history on her own terms, and I wouldn't let her walk away without facing the consequences, both financially and emotionally. One of the most pivotal moments came when Andreas, the man who had once been her partner in this messy affair, publicly disassociated himself from her. In an unexpected interview with a local news station, he admitted that he had been trapped in a web of manipulation, a web that Isadora had spun long before I started my own investigation. His testimony added yet another layer to the chorus of voices condemning her actions and marked the point where our story grew from a failed marriage into a broader lesson about deception and accountability. That public renunciation was a turning point, sealing the fate of Isadora's carefully built empire of lies. As more people stepped forward with their own stories of being misled by her charm and deceit, the scandal turned into a complete public reckoning. It was no longer just a private struggle for a clean divorce, it had become a community-wide rejection of dishonesty. Standing at the crossroads of personal loss and public vindication, I knew that the final chapters of this ordeal were yet to be written. The legal battles would continue, the media would keep probing every detail, and our community would remember the fall of a woman who had mastered manipulation. Yet, through it all, I began to find a sense of peace. I hadn't sought revenge for revenge's sake, I simply demanded that the truth be told and that justice be done. As dusk settled on that fateful day, I walked alone through a quiet park, the cool breeze carrying away remnants of a turbulent past, and I realized that the road to healing was just beginning. The pain of betrayal would linger, but it would also remind me of the strength it takes to stand up for what is right. With that thought in mind, I stepped forward into a future built on truth, no matter how bitter it might be. In the weeks after the public unmasking of Isadora's carefully spun web of lies, the air felt charged with a finality that could not be undone. The legal battle had grown more intense, and every new piece of evidence further confirmed the truth I had worked so hard to uncover. The community, which had once been split by whispered doubts and hesitant defenses, now stood together, faced with the clear reality that the woman they had once admired was not the victim she had pretended to be. The courtroom turned into a battleground where every bit of digital correspondence, every recorded conversation, and every testimony from our mutual acquaintances was examined in detail. I watched as the evidence I had collected was laid out before a judge determined to serve justice. Although the proceedings were formal and full of legal language, they carried an emotional weight that went far beyond the cold walls of the courtroom. For me, this was more than a divorce case, it was a final reckoning with the past, a strong statement that the truth, no matter how harsh it was to uncover, could not be hidden behind layers of lies. Isadora's legal team fought hard, trying to twist the story by questioning the authenticity of the evidence and suggesting that my claims were fueled by bitterness. But every one of their arguments was met with solid proof, multiple testimonies, clear digital trails, and timely statements from those who had once been charmed by her act. At one critical moment, a surprise witness, a former confidant of Isadora, stepped forward. Her voice trembled and her eyes filled with regret as she recalled the many times she had seen Isadora involved in secret, flirtatious conversations. Her raw, honest testimony painted a picture of a woman who had repeatedly broken trust, not just once, but over and over. The courtroom fell silent as the impact of her words sank in, leaving Isadora's defense scrambling to hold on to what was left of their case. Outside the courtroom, the media had seized the story with a fervor that turned it into a national spectacle. Headlines blared about a scandal that went far beyond a simple marital dispute, a story of betrayal, manipulation, and the crumbling of a facade that had fooled an entire community. While the public's attention was unyielding, I kept my focus on the core principle that had driven me from the beginning: accountability. I had never sought the spotlight or aimed to make our personal tragedy a spectacle. Yet, in revealing the truth, I had inadvertently become a symbol of strength against deception. In the midst of all the media chaos, Isadora's desperate attempts to repair her ruined reputation only grew more frantic. She arranged private meetings with family members and old friends, begging for forgiveness and insisting that her mistakes were isolated incidents caused by loneliness. At one such gathering, she stood before our relatives with eyes full of unshed tears and a voice trembling as she repeated the same tired lines. But I had learned long ago that empty words could never replace real remorse. I listened in silence, my heart heavy with memories of what we had once shared, and I knew that forgiveness was a luxury I could no longer afford, not after the betrayal of everything I had held dear. In one final, symbolic moment, the court handed down its ruling. The decision was clear and unequivocal: the evidence of Isadora's systematic deceit was beyond dispute. The division of assets, the alimony settlement, and the custody arrangements were decided with a fairness that recognized not only the legal facts but also the moral weight of her actions. The court's decision sent shockwaves through our social circles. Friends who had once tried to mediate between us now expressed relief that justice had been served, and even those who had stayed neutral found comfort in the clarity of the verdict. For me, the ruling was a bittersweet victory. It ensured that Isadora would not escape unscathed, but it did little to fill the void left by the collapse of the life we had shared. As I stepped out of the courthouse into the cool, brisk air of early autumn, I felt a profound emptiness, a reminder that while justice had been achieved, healing would be a slow and difficult process. The pain of betrayal ran deep and would linger, but it was softened by the knowledge that I had stood up for myself and for the truth. In the following months, life began to settle into a new normal. The storms of legal battles and media frenzy slowly faded, leaving behind a quiet, reflective calm after a hard-fought battle. I threw myself into rebuilding not only my finances and legal footing but also my sense of self. I reconnected with old friends, started new projects, and allowed myself to rediscover the simple joys that had been buried under the turmoil of the past year. Isadora, on the other hand, withdrew from the public eye. Her attempts at public reconciliation dwindled until they vanished, as the full extent of her deceit became known to all. The polished image she had worked so hard to maintain was forever tarnished, and the support she once enjoyed disappeared. At social gatherings, I would occasionally catch sight of her, a solitary figure whose eyes no longer held the spark of confidence, but rather a haunted look full of regret and missed chances. Yet, I made a deliberate choice: would no longer engage with her, nor be pulled back into the echoes of a past best left behind. I focused solely on my journey toward healing, trusting that time would eventually mend even the deepest wounds. In the end, this entire ordeal changed me in ways I had never expected. I had journeyed through the depths of betrayal, navigated the stormy waters of public scandal, and emerged with a renewed sense of resilience and integrity. The whole process served as a powerful reminder that the truth is a formidable force, one that, when pursued with unwavering determination, can break down even the most carefully constructed deceptions. Looking back on this chapter of my life, I see it not just as a time of immense personal pain but as a transformative journey toward self-discovery and empowerment. The scars of betrayal may remain, but they stand as proof of the strength it takes to face darkness and come out into the light of truth. I have learned that while we cannot change the past, we can shape our future by standing firmly in our own truth. And so, as the final echoes of this turbulent saga begin to fade, I step into a new dawn, one defined not by the shadows of betrayal, but by the promise of a life rebuilt on honesty, integrity, and the relentless pursuit of justice.